This is Carolina Ghost Towns, a podcast about the vanished towns and lost communities in South Carolina, North Carolina, and maybe a few other places. I'm your host, Tom Taylor. Okay, so this episode is going to be a bit different. I've been researching several towns with tragic histories, like the recent episode on the Phoenix riots, and I needed something a bit lighter. Even so, this one comes with a trigger warning. This episode is going to bounce all over the place, so those with ADHD tendencies, like me, consider yourself warned. It's also going to be chock full of personal anecdotes, so there's that too. So, on with the show. I've traveled to lots of national parks. Apart from the beauty of the parks themselves, what I find fascinating are the towns and attractions that pop up on the periphery of major parks. These places provide needed services such as lodging and dining, but they are also home to odd little second and third tier attractions such as gift shops, rides, museums of the unusual, and small theme parks, all designed to cater to a variety of tastes, or lack thereof. One of my favorites was in Cave City, Kentucky, just outside of Mammoth Cave National Park. Not far from Dinosaur World, there is, or was, a now defunct miniature golf course called the Golgotha Fun Park. The name itself is wrong on so many levels. Apparently, there were two courses that took you through various biblical hazards. You could either play the Blue Jesus course or the Red Jesus course and try to sink putts past Jonah's whale or around Noah's Ark. At the end of each course, you had to work your way uphill to the place of the skulls, where Jesus was crucified. The 17th hole was the tomb, and the 18th hole, the Ascension. You got to play again if you made a hole-in-one on that one, an allegorical second coming. On our one and only visit, I really wanted to stop and at least get a photo of the sign, but my wife said no. Oh well. The sign and the course have been removed since that visit, so I missed my chance. In this episode, I'm going to focus on just one national park, Great Smoky Mountains National Park, straddling the border between North Carolina and Tennessee. As one of the most popular parks in the country, it is surrounded by these periphery attractions in the towns of Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge on the Tennessee side, and Cherokee and Maggie Valley on the North Carolina side. These periphery attractions included several ghost towns, fake ones, including one that even bore the name Ghost Town in the Sky. Today, we're going to take a look at several of these fake ghost town attractions. In the 1950s and 60s, Westerns ruled the entertainment sphere. There were the true Westerns dominating movie theaters and filling television screens with series like Gunsmoke and Bonanza. Then there were the Western-adjacent movies and shows, with Fess Parker starring as both Davy Crockett and Daniel Boone, and a young Leslie Nielsen as Frances Marion in Disney's The Swamp Fox. Heck, even Star Trek was described by Gene Roddenberry as a, quote, wagon train to the stars, close quote. one aside. This episode will drop much later, but I'm working on it on Father's Day, so I can't help thinking about my dad and his love of Westerns. He plays a larger role a bit later in this story, but he had a strange quirk. He was a preacher, so there were strict rules about what we could or could not watch in our house. My dad would watch dozens of men killed by gunfire and arrows, but let one curse word slip or hint of sexuality, and he would spin the channel dial with such force that it would often break off. We kept a pair of pliers on top of the TV because the dial was often missing. But back to our story. There were several businessmen in the region that wanted to cash in on the Western and Western-adjacent craze. These men alternately partnered and competed with each other to develop a series of theme parks. R.B. Coburn from Orangeburg, South Carolina, the Robbins brothers, Spencer, Grover, and Harry from Boone, North Carolina, and Harry Stewart from Travelers Rest, South Carolina, constructed a series of Western theme parks in Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, and even down in Florida. Disneyland opened in 1955 with its various themed areas. California might as well have been on Mars for the average family in the Carolinas. These local theme park developers wanted to capture just a bit of that Disney popularity, especially the Frontierland and Adventureland portions of the park. These Western theme parks wanted to recreate the historical settings in detail. The Italian author Umberto Eco visited parks all around the United States and wrote in his essay, Travels in Hyperreality, that, quote, "There is a constant in the average American imagination and taste, for which the past must be preserved and celebrated in full-scale authentic copy. A philosophy of immortality as duplication. It dominates the relation with the self, with the past, not infrequently with the present, always with history, and even with a European tradition." Close quote. Eco also wrote that many of these parks completely miss the mark, delving instead into archetypes and myth rather than reality. He also had several choice comments on American consumerism, which was exemplified by amusement parks across the country. As for the parks themselves, the first one to open was Tweetsie Railroad in Boone, North Carolina. The East Tennessee and Western North Carolina Railroad had been a narrow-gauge railroad running from Boone to Johnson City, Tennessee. The train came to be known as Tweetsie, from its acronym, ET and WNC. But the name also referred to the Baldwin Engine No. 12's high-pitched whistle. The railroad ceased operations in 1950. Grover Robbins purchased the engine, rolling stock, and rails for $17,000 and began construction of his tourist attraction. Grover, along with his younger brothers Harry and Spencer, opened the attraction in 1957. Tweetsie Railroad would set the blueprint for other Western attractions that followed. Tourists would board the train and would be attacked by either bandits or Indians. They would be defended by brave cowboys or the local sheriff. Just a note that I'm choosing to use the term Indians here instead of Native Americans. Their portrayal in these old amusement park towns was stereotypical for the time and demeaning, not worthy of the true Native American legacy. In his book, Lost Attractions of the Smoky Mountains, Tim Hollis states that, quote, "The strangest thing about Cherokee's version of the tourist culture is that it largely ignored the tribe's genuine past in favor of a Plains Indians look that was based on the image seen in Western motion pictures and later television shows. By the 1950s, Cherokee's main drag looked like it could have belonged in Albuquerque or Sioux City. Back in Boone, other attractions were added to Tweetsie over time, including more exciting rides and shops. Although the railroad was the main attraction, the park took on the aura of an Old West town.
Here's great family fun back-to-back. Tweetsie Railroad, located near Blowing Rock, North Carolina, is making the rails sing with rousing shows, hair-raising rides, and rip-roaring Western excitement. And at nearby Grandfather Mountain, you'll see and enjoy breathtaking scenery at every turn. Cross the mile-high swinging bridge. Visit natural wildlife habitats for bear, deer, cougar, and eagles. Two great family attractions back-to-back in one spectacular Carolina Mountain neighborhood. Tweetsie Railroad and Grandfather Mountain.
With the success of Tweetsie Railroad, the Robbins brothers looked for more opportunities. They purchased another steam engine and more rolling stock, and in 1961 opened Rebel Railroad in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, on the western side of the Smoky Mountain National Park. It featured a steam train, general store, blacksmith shop, and saloon. For this attraction, Confederate soldiers protected the railroad from the usual rogues gallery of bandits and Indians, plus a few Yankee marauders for good measure. This town was festooned with gray uniforms and Confederate battle flags. Rebel Town 1860 was supposed to be an authentic historic recreation of a bygone era, according to their advertising. It really seemed that Umberto Eco was onto something. Ronald Braxton Coburn, who went by his initials RB, was born in Virginia, but moved to Orangeburg, South Carolina. Coburn had followed the progress of Tweetsie Railroad and wanted in on the act. He met with Harry Stewart on the top of Buck Mountain in Maggie Valley on the eastern side of the Smokies. There, he laid out his vision for Ghost Town in the Sky. The park would consist of 10 towns on different levels of the mountain. There would be amusement park rides, shops, and entertainment provided by dancing saloon girls and popular entertainers of the day. Visitors accessed the mountaintop either by an inclined railway or chairlift.
Ride the Incline Railroad or take the chairlift to fabulous Ghost Town in the Mile High Fun Park. Ride all the rides as often as you like. One admission price includes all rides and entertainment. Every minute is action-packed as you experience the excitement of the Old West. Ghost Town offers a day of fun and thrills for the entire family. See all the shows, ride all the rides for one admission price. Get set for the greatest in family entertainment. Hurry to Ghost Town in Maggie Valley, North Carolina, where the fun never stops.
The new park was a hit and a boon for Maggie Valley. In the nearby town of Cherokee, Coburn built another park called Frontierland in 1964. He leased land from the eastern band of the Cherokee Nation for the park and guaranteed an authentic Western experience. According to the Silva Herald, quote, "It was laid out in 3 sections: the frontier town of Deadwood Gulch, the army post known as Fort Cherokee, and Indian Territory, consisting of the villages of 11 different Western tribes." Coburn sold his shares in Ghost Town and Frontierland and eventually moved to Florida. There, he started another Western town attraction called Six Gun Territory, near Ocala. And that brings us back to my neck of the woods and the story of Harry Stewart and his Western town of Echo Valley. Harry Stewart had been friends with R.B. Coburn and had been with him when he was planning Ghost Town in the Sky. Stewart had been the one to purchase several miles of narrow-gauge rail from the Swamp Rabbit Railroad in Greenville for use at Ghost Town. In the early 1960s, he decided to replicate Coburn's Park in the community of Cleveland in upstate South Carolina, along the original route of the Swamp Rabbit. Stewart joined several local investors to purchase an old lumber mill site along the Saluda River. There, he built a replica old Western town, pretty much along the same lines as Ghost Town in the Sky, but without the exotic amusement park rides. The main attraction was a 9-mile loop ride on the Swamp Rabbit Railroad, again with bandits and Indians. There was a chairlift up to Echo Ridge and a small lake with pontoon boat rides. Gunfights and saloon entertainment rounded out the attraction. In a 2019 interview with the Travelers Rest Historical Society, the late George Hyder, the last engineer on the Swamp Rabbit Railroad, described what it was like to work at Echo Valley.
Not a penny to my name. Get off, you railroad bum, as you slam the box start.
My name is George Hyder, and I took the train from Greenville to Echo Valley, the last trip it made.
I can't remember all the words.
That's good.
But that's some of it. Jimmy Rogers stuff.
They like to hear the whistle blow, you know, when you're going down the track, and they'll hear that racket out there, them wheels making a racket, and they think they're going to heaven, you know, with that train. All up through here and all the way up to Marietta, there was people standing on the side of the railroad track watching as it went by, you know, and wanting to blow the horn and all that stuff, you know. So it was an excitement for everybody. We was building it in 61. That's where the post office is now, where the train pulled around at the post office and headed back down the track. And then there, when you get to Marietta, the tire shop's on the left, Marietta Tire and Lawn and Garden. On the right, right up in there, is where we made another turnaround to go back to Echo Valley. They done a show every 2 hours. We had 2 horses and had a buffalo and some other stuff and a cow or 2 and up on the hill where the chairlift went. We had 2 horses up there, and June Bug get on one of them horses and come up beside that train running wide open and swing off on it and come in there to rob the train. And I'd put the cuffs on him and cuff him up there next to the engine, you know, to an iron bars and take him off and put him in jail. Yeah, he'd climb off that horse, and that horse just keep running right on the side of the track. He'd run off out there and stand out there and eat grass, and every while June Bug would go down there and get him, take him back, put him in the lot. It was a good show.
That's a pretty good show.
Sure was, a lot of work in it.
In addition to his engineering duties, George was a fantastic musician, and I was privileged to play with him on occasion before his passing in 2021. These smaller attractions didn't have the big budgets like Disney, so they didn't have lots of funds for advertising. Rarely were these places destinations in and of themselves. Usually, tourists stumbled upon them on the way to a larger destination, like a national park. Of course, billboards would announce their presence miles before you got to the location. Then, there were the pamphlets tucked into displays in just about every motel and restaurant en route. When we were riding through the mountains with my family, I collected these, souvenirs of places I'd never get to visit. The advertising schemes I remember most were the bumper stickers. It was the practice of these tourist places to put bumper stickers for the park on any vehicle parked in their lot, whether you wanted them or not. I had cousins who had visited Ghost Town, Ruby Falls, and other exotic places like this, and had come back with these mementos plastered on their car's bumper. I was jealous and wanted proof that I, too, had visited such a place. We did make it to Echo Valley. I don't remember much about the trip, but I do remember that my brother got into some trouble for climbing up onto the gallows for a photo. He was scolded by some park official over the loudspeaker, which caused no small amount of embarrassment for both he and my father. I think that cut our visit to the park short, and may be why I don't remember that much about the visit. My dad made some comment about having a shorter temper back then when I asked him about it later. But when we got back to the car, sure enough, there was an Echo Valley bumper sticker. Much to my dismay, my dad immediately removed it, saying that he didn't want it to damage the car. I think it was the gallows loudspeaker incident that had something to do with his haste to remove it. Eventually, our family traveled to Maggie Valley and Ghost Town as part of a longer trip to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. The only way to get into Ghost Town was via the inclined railway, which didn't look safe enough for my mother, or the chairlift, which looked even more precarious. The ultimate undoing, though, was the cost. It would have cost $48 for admission for the 7 of us, which was a princely sum back then. We'd have to live with our memories of Echo Valley and its western town instead. And we would have no bumper sticker as proof. With the passing of the age of the Western, attendance at these theme parks started to decline. Echo Valley was the first to go. Even though Westerns were still popular, the park just couldn't make any money. According to investor Melvin Gerard, quote, "Every time we took in a little money, we had to pay it on land bills and were never able to expand. We didn't have Highway 11 at that time, so we didn't have the traffic that we have today to boost our business. After 4 years, we closed up because we just couldn't make any money out of it. We would have probably gotten into financial trouble, but we had several people on the board who had money and extended loans to the park. We finally sold out, paid all the bills, and liquidated everything. We did lose some money on our stock, though. Close quote. Echo Valley lasted only 4 years. It closed in 1968. If you visit Echo Valley today, there's not even a bumper sticker to give a hint as to what had been there. All of the old buildings are gone. Engine 110 was sold to Stone Mountain Park in Atlanta, where it sat on display for many years. In 2012, it was sold to the New Hope Valley Railroad near Raleigh, North Carolina, where the engine is being restored. The most poignant reminder of the park is a single concrete block that served as a base for the chairlift that once took visitors over the ridge for a view of Echo Valley. It sits alone, visible in the middle of what is left of Echo Lake. The Swamp Rabbit name lives on, though, as a very popular rails-to-trails park that winds through Greenville County. Other parks lasted a bit longer, perhaps because they were closer to other attractions. Those that survived had to adapt, adding more exciting rides and changing shows to fit more modern sensibilities. In 1983, Frontierland in Cherokee became a water park, which only lasted about 3 years. In 1997, the site became the home of Harrah's Cherokee Casino, bringing in much more money for the eastern band of the Cherokee Nation than the lease with Frontierland ever did. Ghost Town in the Sky still clings to the top of Buck Mountain in Maggie Valley, but its fate is uncertain. R.B. Coburn had sold his share of the park, but bought it back in 1986. The park suffered from mismanagement and financial woes and wasn't able to maintain the roller coasters or the rides. In 2002, the chairlift stopped, stranding riders. Coburn closed the park after that incident and put it up for sale. Ghost Town changed hands several times, with multiple attempts to reopen it. One plan was to turn the site into Resurrection Mountain, a replica of the Holy Land. The last time it opened was as Ghost Town Village. The rides were no longer functional, but visitors could ride the chairlift and tour the old town. Eventually, even that closed down, and the park now sits abandoned. As for Tweetsie Railroad, it keeps chugging along, a relic of a bygone era. Somehow, it has managed to weather and adapt to all of the changes. But what about the Robbins Brothers' other park in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee? The Confederate-themed railroad just wouldn't work in today's society. The park was rebranded as Gold Rush Junction in 1964. As part of the name change, the park switched to a Wild West theme similar to its sister park, Tweetsie Railroad. In 1976, the owners of Silver Dollar City in Branson, Missouri, purchased the park and renamed it Silver Dollar City, Tennessee. In 1986, none other than Dolly Parton bought a controlling interest in the park and reopened it as Dollywood, which is still going strong today.
When you're in the Smokies, come on out to Dollywood. We're sliding down a mountain, makes you feel real good. It's a magic place just filled with family fun. Splashing down together on a raft and a river run. Learn about the craftsman's skills, sit down to home-cooked meals. See how good the music makes you feel. Get away to Dollywood, it's home fun. In the heart of the Smokies, Pigeon Forge, Tennessee.
That does it for this episode of Carolina Ghost Towns, and I hope you enjoyed the diversion. Next time, we'll get back to exploring another lost community. If you want to know more about these old Western theme parks, there will be links in the show notes. As always, recommend the show to your friends and give us a review. Thank you. Hi, this is Tom, and we've got some late-breaking news on Ghost Town in the Sky. This information dropped just a little bit before this episode was supposed to drop, so I'm kind of adding it at the last minute. WLTX in Columbia has reported that an unnamed developer has purchased Ghost Town in the Sky, and that the developer has hired Matt Ferguson from Storyland Studios to redevelop the park. Right now, there's no more information on that as for opening dates or anything like that. We'll keep you posted, and we'll see how that goes. Thank you.
In this southern ghost town, we found a story untold. In the shadows of the past, we unravel, secrets unfold. With each step we take, we journey back in time. In this southern ghost town, we leave our footprints behind.
Thanks for listening. The opening music was composed by Lex FM with additional music from Pixabay. The song Southern Ghost Town was generated by Suno AI. All other music was composed and recorded by me, Tom Taylor. Carolina Ghost Towns is a part of the Random Connections empire. It's pretty much a one-man show, so I wear all the hats, including producer, writer, researcher, sound engineer, publicist, and bartender. If you like the show, please subscribe on your favorite pod venue and be sure to give us feedback. If you have questions, comments, or ideas for the show, you can reach me at carolinaghosttownspod@gmail.com. For more information and show notes, visit randomconnections.com. Thank you.
In this southern ghost town, we found a story untold. In the shadows of the past, we unravel, secrets unfold. With each step we take, we journey back in time. In this southern ghost town, we leave our footprints behind.